All right, so before we dive in, we're gonna do a fun little icebreaker. It's the afternoon, this is a tough shift. So what we're gonna do is at your tables, everyone stand up, pick a partner, and play rock, paper, scissors. And then whoever wins, it's a contest, who's the best rock, paper, scissors player at your table, okay? We're gonna do it at the front too. So let's all, you guys face off here against each other. So you two face off, you two face off.
Ready?
Rock, paper, scissors. You gotta, it's shoot.
Oh, it's shoot?
Yeah,
Okay.
rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Okay, and now you have, the winners have to play.
Okay. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh. Bennett's the winner.
Okay, we got some winners. Bennett, are you the winner?
Yes.
Awesome. All right, don't have too much fun. Sit back down. That's great. Bennett is our champ on stage, so yeah.
Yeah.
All right, welcome. My name is Jeff Horst, and we're gonna go through some introductions here, and we wanna have fun, keep it light. This topic, I think, has a lot of potential for some juicy stories, so we're gonna try to get into the good stuff. So Jeff Horst, CEO of Rocket Barn. I've been a business owner for 13 years. I was one of the founders of this company. We're a digital marketing agency, and we serve on the consumer side, helping franchisors and their franchisees with local marketing. And I've been in many partner relationships in business, lots of clients, lots of strategic partners. And so this topic is definitely one that's interesting. And I've been through a lot of experiences, some really tough learnings along the way. And we've kind of had some debriefing as a group up here, and we've got some great panelists with some great backgrounds. So throw it over here to Trevor. Why don't you introduce yourself and kick it off?
And your fun fact, right?
Oh yeah, fun fact. We're each gonna share a fun fact. I have many, and apparently some of them are not appropriate for this. So I'm gonna go with a PG fun fact, and it's that I'm an uncle to 25 beautiful nephews and nieces. 3 of them got married this year. So I've been the resident DJ for all my nephew and nieces' parties.
25? Jesus. Okay. Trevor Rapley, I am a triplet, and I also referee Pac-12 soccer. That's my fun facts. Franchise filming, I've been filming since I was 13. I've never had another job. Back in the 90s, I filmed with the big VHS camera. It was back in the day. Fell into franchising in 2019. I was calling franchisors franchisees. So I was that guy, but I was learning. We film franchise marketing videos, franchise filming. Thanks. Thank you, Bennett.
Yeah, we'll do a round of applause.
Whitney Mann, I'm the SVP for brand operations at East Coast Wings and Grill, headquartered out of Winston-Salem, North Carolina. I've been with the brand since 2004, so that's my fun fact. I actually started as a server in one of our very small market locations, and I worked my way to the corporate headquarters, doing some admin filing, then dabbled in every department, eventually making me kind of well-rounded to take over field and brand operations. I've been in the restaurant space since I was 10. My grandmother had a restaurant, so I worked there during the summer and just fell in love with it. Didn't want to stay in it, decided to branch out. I got my cosmetology license, which I still have. Did hair for 10 years on top of serving, bartending, managing, and then eventually, like I said, just made it to the corporate headquarters and on a journey that has got some great history, but we're not done yet.
Awesome. You just pass this.
Okay, there we go. Hi, I'm Rachel Southard. I'm the president of emerging brands at Threshold Brands. So I have 3 brands: Min & Kilts, Granite Garage Floors, and Patio Patrol. I live in Fort Worth, Texas. And my fun fact is I hate doing fun facts because I feel like I'm very uninteresting. So I had to ask a lot of people, is this actually a fun fact? But I'm originally from South Louisiana. So I'm Cajun. My whole family's from South Louisiana. I grew up on the Bayou Teche. And when I was 5 years old, my mom put me in a beauty pageant, and I was crowned Little Miss Creole. So that's my fun fact.
Nice.
Love that.
I'm Bennett Maxwell, the founder of Dirty Dough. We are a cookie franchise competing with Crumble. Fun fact, I also learned what a franchisor and a franchisee was about 2 years ago when I jumped into the business, and I'm still trying to figure out everything as I go.
Awesome. All right, here's our panelists. So we had a little Zoom call, meet and greet, and just looking at their backgrounds, there's a lot of history here, a lot of different perspectives, which is cool. So I've given them each kind of a title and an area that they're going to speak from. So Whitney is our operations extraordinaire. So you're going to come from that perspective, and really questions that you have, you can direct them directly to her. Rachel is the emerging expert. You know, she's got that lens with the emerging brands, and so we'll call her the emerging expert. Bennett is a founder, so he comes from that perspective and some of the unique challenges that founders face. And Trevor is the supplier. So we got all different kind of perspectives here, and we're going to try to share from those in the questions. Okay, so the first one, and we're going to dive in deep right away. What is the biggest mistake you've made when it comes to a business partnership? And what is the lesson that you learned from that? So we want to hear some juicy stories. You don't have to mention names, but what were the big mistakes and what were the learnings? So we're going to start with Whitney.
Sure.
I did give you a heads up.
He did. He told me. So I think every mistake you can look at as a mistake, or you can look at it as tuition, right? So that's what we've always tried to do, is fail forward. John Maxwell's mentality behind all of that. So really thinking about what you need to know, because that's power, right? What you don't know, what you don't know. So when you're vetting out different suppliers, you know, a mistake, if we want to call it that I made early on specifically, was just not vetting out enough, right? Like I would pick 2 or 3, I'd have conversations with them, try to pick a little bit from each one that I would then have more ammunition for the next one. And that kind of gave me the roundabout, mentality that we need to bet more. So instead of 3, it's 6, or instead of 6, it's 9. Find out as many suppliers in that same challenge that you're trying to solve for, and make sure that you're really digging into the questions. And I think someone said earlier on the marketing panel that you just have to make sure that you are asking the right questions, asking for references, talking to as many people that use it that are not advocates for the supplier. We want the down and dirty. We want those nitty-gritty details. You know what? This didn't work for us, and that's okay. But it might work for you. It might solve a problem that you have. So just really making sure that you're doing your diligence, asking as many questions you can, and networking with other people that might have a similar need that they're solving for, which is what I love about these conferences, is you really can have those hard conversations and possibly land on what you're really looking for. So,
Awesome. Okay, we're going to go to Trevor next. We're going to hear the supplier side of things.
Yeah. So my very first franchise show, I was that guy that just would walk up to booths, not say hi, grab cards, and then send that email like, hey, it was great to see you at the booth, without even saying hi, without even trying to get to like know them, right? And the minute I didn't do that, and we started to actually take time to get to know them, going to shows, not just being in front of my laptop. Like, I'm a firm advocate that the best things happen when you are not in front of your screen, like here, right? And the second thing is, the minute I didn't just try to sell to someone, but I tried to teach them. That's really what has helped us. Is we do a webinar. It's live, and pretty much every sale we have gotten is because they have learned at that webinar. Because I want them to realize, A, this is actually really hard to film friend ed videos, but also I kind of want to give away how we did it so that they realize, I actually don't want to deal with all that. I'll just kind of hire franchise filming. So if you're not trying to teach someone something, I think you're losing a lot of sales, and I think the best sales take the longest. Some of our biggest deals have been from 9 months of work, 18 months of work. So teach, don't sell.
Awesome. Thanks, Trevor.
Yeah.
All right, Bennett, we're going to go to you, and I know you're growing really fast, so I'm hoping there's some juicy stories over there.
Oh yeah, we mess up all the time. We franchised in December of 21, and we opened our first store in June of 2022. We just opened up our 20th store today. So it's been crazy, and trying to find the right suppliers. Definitely we didn't vet them properly. One particular, I think I had, I don't know, maybe 5 calls with different SBA lenders, and I was like, yeah, this one and this one. Sent it out to some franchisees. Maybe a year ago, we had about 50 sold, and they started working with them. Fast forward to now, we have different SBA lenders that are a lot better. What I failed to do is go back to the first ones and say, hey, this one's a lot better, which definitely left some egg on my face for not doing that. So really, I mean, kind of just echoing, really vetting them. And then if you make the change, what I failed to do is communicating that change with everyone else and say, hey, here's a much better lender now that we're, a year in. So one of the many learning opportunities that I've had.
Awesome. Thanks for sharing. All right, Rachel.
For me, it is not bringing my franchisees along early and often. Most of the time when you are looking for a supplier, it's to solve a pain point that your franchisees are experiencing. And having those conversations early on, even during the vetting process, letting them know where you are in the process, who you're vetting and why. We recently made a big change to a new vendor, a new field service software. I'm not going to name any names, but we past rollout, of course, there's always going to be issues, and franchisees get really upset, like, why didn't you ask this, or why didn't they don't do this, whatever. And it's like, actually, we built out this scorecard. We listed out everything we wanted, every a demo that we did. We asked everyone the same questions, but I never shared that with the franchisees. I should have brought them along the way to show them, here's how we vetted them. Here's the scorecard. This one scored this much. This is what they said during those demos. So just being really transparent to your franchisees and bringing them along is really important.
Awesome. Yeah, some great shares. And I think in my experience, and especially early on, and I have a sales background, so I was always really excited to sell. And sometimes I would rush that process. And the Canadian in me is coming out here. But no, I think those relationships are really important to take the time to really set up. And you don't realize how costly they're going to be on the back end, how much manpower goes into it. And I think the biggest mistakes can be setting up the wrong partnerships. And often you're feeling the pressure of your franchisees that are complaining, or there's a pressure from sales, and you make the wrong decision and jump in, and then it becomes very expensive. So, all right, so let's try to go on the positive angle here. What is something that a supplier, and this is going to go specifically to the franchisors first here, what is something that a supplier did that set them apart in the relationship and kind of closed the deal for you and got you excited? So, Bennett, we're going to go to you first.
All right. I think the big piece was the education. The media company, and we probably get, 5 to 10 emails a day of, hey, we want to do this or that. But the ones that will send something a little bit, I guess, customized, with that education piece. So when we kind of rewind a year, we were in a lawsuit. We're still in a lawsuit, but we're in a lawsuut, and a lot of people wanted to do the marketing. This company specifically reached out, and he's like, hey, this is the angle that we would like to do. And I didn't even know him. He reached out to LinkedIn, but he gave me his full plan on some videos that they were making around the lawsuit, which were a huge success. But he did take that time to, before even getting on the phone with me, writing out the whole plan so I can analyze it, because usually I won't take a phone call. There's just a lot going on. So, fast forward a year, and he's our preferred vendor. He's does all of the corporate media, all of our video, our TikToks, and then he's the preferred vendor for 350-something franchises that we've signed now.
So you didn't just get a canned LinkedIn message?
No, I mean, it was like, this is what I'm going to do, and we're going to hire George Bush impersonator. We never ended up doing that, but like he gave the whole thing. I was like, this guy's creative. This guy's
He knew
creative.
about your business, and he really came with he'd put effort in. You could tell.
For sure, yeah.
Awesome. All right, we're gonna go to Whitney next.
So I just want to echo the learning the business that you're actually pitching to, because it's so frustrating as a full service restaurant to have people email me and say, we want to tackle your quick service problems, basically. Like, well, you didn't do your diligence, so next. Also, it's a flood of emails. The LinkedIn messages are getting more and more savvy and more creative, and I feel like AI has a lot to do with that. But to answer the question, something that a supplier's done to really seal the deal was just that. They educated themselves on our business. They made sure that they were catering to us, building a relationship, not being salesy. I don't like that type of mentality. I really want to build that relationship, because I'm going to call on you on the bad times, right? I'm not going to call you and say, hey, your platform's working great. I'll give you kudos when we have calls or touch points, but I'm going to reach out to you when I need you because something's going wrong. So I really think that it's important that when we're building that relationship from the get-go, that you understand that, and that the relationship kind of matures into that, where I can call on you for other things. It's not just your platform. Hey, do you have experience in this? So that relationship is the most important piece of any sales pitch.
Awesome, great share, Rachel.
I don't really have anything specific that stands out. I tried to, when choosing a supplier, be very quantitative in our research, and so we tried to be very specific before we even start meeting with suppliers on we call like our conditions of satisfaction. What does satisfaction look like when this is done? What are the specific things that we're looking for? And we create a demo scorecard. Because we don't want to be distracted by like shiny things. And if you don't do that ahead of time, then you get distracted by shiny things or shiny salespeople, and then you end up in a bad situation. So being very clear on here's exactly what we're looking for in order of importance, and scoring them when we do demos. And so then it comes down to what wins us over is who has the highest score. I mean, it's very quantitative, and it keeps us kind of grounded in what we originally said we needed and we were looking for. But for kind of a more like relationship standpoint, it's very important. It's never going to go perfect. So getting a good understanding, even like kind of through negotiating, of how these folks are going to be to work with, because there's going to be problems that come up, whether it's through the integration or post rollout with franchisees. You're going to have to go to that supplier and solve problems together in a true partnership way. And what are they going to be like to work with? I always like to say the beer test. Like, can I have a couple beers with this person? Are we going to get along? Because then we'll probably work through it. So I don't know. I don't know if that's like a really straight, direct, like something they've done to woo me, but it's just having what we're looking for and being really clear on that.
Awesome. Cool. And Trevor, we're going to hear from the other side of things. What's something that's worked for you as a supplier to get in and kind of, you've shared a bit, like maybe you should know about franchising when you're, that. And so, but what are you doing now? What's really seems to be working?
Yeah, so we get hit up a lot that, hey, this guy does videos. Can you do what they do, or can you match their investment level? And half the time I say, well, what are they doing? And then I say, I have some other ideas. So there has not been a single deal that we've won where we have listened to the first ask that the Zor had. Because half the time it's like if you call someone to come and fix your sink, you're not going to be telling the sink guy, I'm blanking on who fixes sink. Plumber, Jesus. Okay. Plumber, all right, let's go backwards here. A plumber.
That's why we have Google, because you
that's
can
why I have
search
Google.
anything.
Okay. You're not going to be
sink guy.
telling the sink guy. You're not going to be telling him or her how to fix the sink. So I think if people just don't accept what the Zor is initially asking for, because you are the expert. Come with another set of ideas. So there was one deal, Neighborly, who was one of our first Zors ever. I didn't know who they were when they came up to us at IFA, so that's where we were. And initially they were like, hey, we want some videos. And it ended up turning into, well, why don't we make content for all of your 22 brands in a 2-month span in any city? And they said, you can do that? I go, yeah. So we took that on and we won that deal, and really, really happy that I didn't just accept what they wanted, because what they initially wanted was, can I phrase this right, was not to the level of emotion that they should be filming. So don't be afraid to say, yeah, but what about this?
Awesome. And
Yeah.
I think that is so important. You are the expert, right? And so I think that's the start of the relationship. How is this going to start? Are you going to be told what to do, or are you going to, stand up and have confidence in what you're doing? Okay, cool. So I was going to add something to this. It's not coming. We're going to move on. Okay, so next question, and we're kind of following a bit of a theme here. What do you do to ensure a partnership gets started on the right foot? So what are things, and we've heard a bit of this, but is there something that you follow? Are there some tricks and ideas that you have of how to get things started on the right foot? So Rachel, we're going to go to you first.
Okay. I like to do what we call design the alliance at the beginning of any relationship. I even do this with my staff. If I'm hiring a new person or a new boss or a new vendor, the very first conversation we have is, let's design what our alliance looks like. What's your communication style? How often do we communicate? How do we handle when problems arise? So having those conversations with your suppliers from the beginning is so important, because again, it is going to happen, or you're going to have those tough conversations. So being really clear from the beginning and not making assumptions. And that's why designing the alliance is so important at the beginning, because a lot of times you'll go into these relationships and make assumptions like, oh, their help desk is going to manage our franchisees' questions. Well, if you don't bring that up and you make that assumption, and then that's not the case, you have a predicament. So you can never ask too many questions at the beginning. Even if you feel like they're dumb questions, ask them, because you're making an assumption that may not be the case.
Awesome. That's great advice. Bennett.
Definitely echo that of just specifying every single thing, making sure it's in writing, even though if it's not in the original kind of outline that they send over, hey, add this or that, even though it might seem trivial. The other thing that I've liked to do, especially with the fast growth, is kind of do a trial period with anybody. Like, we're not going to sign any agreements, but we'll do a month to month for the first 2 or 3 months. And if it goes good, then we can sign an agreement. But that allows us to know the questions that we didn't know to ask in that initial proposal. After 1 or 2 months, it's like, hey, this has been working, this hasn't been working, let's adjust this. And now that we're on the same page, we know what the relationship's like, now we can do a longer term contract. So kind of dipping your toe in the water.
Awesome. Let's go to Trevor.
So I think we underestimate the feeling that you should have after someone signs with you. So you go from bugging them to becoming a vendor to them, but what feeling can you give them after they sign? So one of my favorite things to do to make sure that it begins off right, within the hour, we send them donuts to their entire office. I'm not talking like 10 donuts, I'm talking like 50, so that everybody's saying, who sent these? And then within a week, they get a welcome box with a mug and a handwritten card. So that's how we found has really helped us, turn it to being a friend, and they'll go to bat for you the next time that there's a budget cut, or that someone else comes in and says that they can do what you do.
Amazing. That's really cool. All right, Whitney.
I want donuts on Monday. So I say test everything. We are really, really big about making sure that anything that we're bringing into the system, whether it's a technology platform with a supplier, a fran dev supplier, even down to supply chain, right? We want to make sure that we're testing everything. We're putting it in each individual market. We're putting it with the franchisees that are our influencers, and they can help us make those decisions. The Franchise Advisory Council has been brought up several times over the last couple of days, and I think it's so important. Even if you just do it by Zoom, get your franchisees involved. like you were saying earlier, help them be the ones that make the decision with you, because they're the biggest advocates. And to ensure from the beginning that it's correct, test it. If you're not testing and you're going straight in, you're going to run into way more problems than you expect. And I think echoing the alliance piece, I really like that.
That's awesome. I was going to bring that one up too. So that's a great point. I think from the supplier end, we've made the mistake of saying, yeah, oh, awesome. You want to bring on hundreds of locations. Let's go. And learning with that many people at one time causes a lot of breakdowns. So we've kind of set a standard. It's always starting with that 5 locations, even if that's for the first couple of weeks, just to iron out the kinks with technology and all the different things. Every brand's unique. And so I think that's the testing phase is really important and kind of unique to franchising. I think that's what makes it so awesome.
And just to add on to that, like understanding what your testing phase is, like what is the amount of time that really provides you that quantitative data that gives you that scorecard that says you're a go. For us, we like to test from anywhere from 45 to 90 days, depending on the style of supplier. And then we put it into more test locations, so a very slow rollout, like your 1 month, 2 month, then sign the deal. I think that suppliers should understand that that's what we're looking for, and that in most cases, we don't want to pay to test it. We want to test it for free. It's your job to proof it out and make sure that we understand it. Now, if there's hardware involved, there's your admin team on the backside that you're putting these resources in, but that's what it's about. You're trying to get someone to proof out what you're selling, and then they can then be that individual influencer for you in networking events such as this, or just when people reach out to say, hey, what are you using? Is it working? So I think all of that is very important.
Awesome. All right, so now we've got kind of heard about how we start a relationship. We want to get it off on the right foot. Maybe you get donuts. That's really nice. But at the end of the day, you bought something and you want a result. And we've heard you could set it up as much as you want. You can try your best, but it's guaranteed to come against some breakdowns, right? And this is just any relationship. I think everyone seeks long-term relationships. In a long-term relationship, you're going to come up against something. So the next question is, how do you handle the breakdown? And what's a story or kind of learning on a crisis situation or something that's happened? How have you worked through that in that partnership? And what are some examples to share? And we're going to start with Trevor.
Yeah. So if ever someone is confused about what we do or the timeline, it means that I wasn't upfront about how long it takes us or about what it takes to get it done right. So what has really worked for us is we show them. We have 324 steps that we follow for every single filming day, for every single edit. And we say, hey, I know you want your video quickly, but it's going to take this long, and then we're going to get caught up here because you're going to try and get too many cooks to give changes, and then we're going to have to go backwards. So just follow this, and we will be on track. And an error that we made in 2021 was we did a training video, and we decided to not let the CEO know what the script was. That was a huge error because he came in and flipped it around. And so I learned from that, like, set better expectations of what has to be done and the involvement that you want the Zor in. Because sometimes they don't have to be really involved on what you're the expert at. And I hopefully answered that.
Yeah, great answer.
Yeah.
All right, we'll go to Rachel.
Don't be an asshole. Because usually you as a franchisor, you're paying the supplier. And so I don't know, I just see this happen so many times where you jump to blaming and pointing fingers and kind of, being an a-hole to the supplier, when a better approach is to understand what happened and know that 99% of the time there's probably some responsibility on your team that you need to take. We've run into this where things happen, and just asking, what could we have done better for this not to happen again? It just lightens the conversation a little bit so we can come to a place of true partnership and solve it together versus pointing fingers and being upset. Because I guarantee you, once you get past this, you're going to need that vendor to scratch your back, and you don't want to have that bad relationship, and burn those bridges. So just having empathy with their team and what they're going through and with your team, and just listening and understanding, and just having a true partnership on solving the problem and not putting it on them to solve the problem.
That's a great answer. Yeah. And I mean, from our end, if the franchisor comes to us and is like, yeah, we've been through 3 or 4 marketing agencies in the last 12 months, and are you going to come and save us? That's often a flag, because it's like, oh boy, what's going on here, right? So yeah, I think that definitely is something that both sides should keep in mind. All right, we'll go to Whitney.
So we're actually going through a pretty big breakdown right now with one of our suppliers, and it's a supplier that we've had for over a decade. And my comment earlier about, sometimes it's just not a good fit. I say this, that's why there's 30 blood pressure medications out there. So being really transparent with your supplier, making sure that you are not burning the bridge, but building one, even in a breakdown, I think is huge and is respected on both sides. When I went to the supplier specifically and told them, this is what's going on, which they knew because of things that were happening at unit level, but they really took a very sensitive approach, which was appreciated. It was, I'm so sorry, what can we do to end this partnership on the right foot? Because chances are one day you could go back to that supplier, or you could have another breakdown, or they could be a fit for another person that you network with, and you could recommend them. So being really upfront, transparent with them about what your thoughts are, making sure that in the crisis they understand that there are success factors that could, recover the relationship, or the success factors that are going to demise the relationship, and being partners all the way until the very end, I think is the most important part of it. Because, for example, I don't want to give too much away about who it is, but we have franchisees that are, calling as well, putting in the advocacy for the breakdown in this supplier relationship. And it's important for us as the ZOR to make sure that we're not only hearing that, but we're doing something about it. And I also encourage you to go to the top of the supplier list. So I had a conversation with the head of the company last week just to give him a firsthand of, what our sales representative isn't being, over the top. She's trying to be an advocate for us. It's not her exaggerating or saying there's all these problems, It is literally, you need to understand this is what's going on, and you have gapping in your processing, and I'm here to help you close those gaps, but we won't be moving forward with your platform.
Wow, that's amazing. I think it's such a tight-knit industry, so it's not like general business where you can, I look at it as like a community. Where our company started, it's about 500,000 people. We were serving a lot of local business owners, and you couldn't, if you do something wrong to one business owner, it doesn't take long for people to find out. Franchising is like that. I've also heard it said when you're exiting or there's a breakup, that's when you really find out who someone is. That's the hardest time to be kind and not be an asshole. So I think that is amazing, and the exit is important too. Yeah. All right, Bennett.
All right, mine is be an asshole. Not really be an asshole, but be direct. I do feel like we skirt around issues too much of like, I need to do this. One example that's coming to my mind was somebody that was doing the custom graphics for each of our franchisees. It was $75 a graphic, and they do a few graphics a week. And I was like, hey, why don't we just have a template of graphics that they pull from, and you charge them a few bucks to put their name and address on it? It's because I already have the graphic designers hired to do that. And I'm like, so you want us to pay more money because you've overhired? And he goes, no, not necessarily. I was like, okay, well then what is it? Okay, that's what it is. I was like, well, you're gonna have to solve that. I'm sorry. So maybe I was a little asshole-ish. That's a word in the moment, but it was to kind of communicate that directly. Another one that we kind of went through that I guess we didn't end it completely, but got an email. They do all of our tech and all of our videos and TVs for every single one of our stores, and it was, hey, you're gonna need to pay this invoice, or else the system, or we're putting everything on hold. And it was, so digging into it, it was, the invoice was $42. And so I just replied to that and I said, let's just end the partnership. Like if you're going to, because his response was, well, there's automations in place that if you don't pay this, we're going to put all your franchise, and we're opening a few stores a week right now. So I was like, well, let's just end the partnership. If $42 in an automated system is more important, but then he called and he's like, no, we won't let that happen. But again, I think it was just like being direct, like, look, that's not how we're going to do it moving forward. And the last example that I'm thinking of is with the real estate partner. Just didn't work out with them. They set a few timelines, they missed it. They missed it the second time, and rather than, I guess, lengthening it out, even though we didn't have the perfect transition to go straight towards, we did end that knowing that it wasn't a good partnership. So I do feel like ending it earlier rather than later is also a better thing to do typically.
Awesome. Different perspective. That's good. I think as a supplier, the direct clients, they can be challenging, and they're often ones calling and kind of engaging more. I look at them as the opportunity to grow as a company, like that, the value of pointing that out, like that system in their accounting, that doesn't make sense. So, but if no one tells you and it just happens and you hold on to that, there's a lot of damage being done to all your clients. So that's great. All right, so Zach, is Zach here? Okay, he's at the back. So we're gonna just keep going. When do you want us to end, Zach? Sorry? 5 minutes. Awesome. We're going to open it up for questions. We've got really smart people at the front, lots of diverse experience. So if you want to direct your question to a specific person, instead of everyone answering it, we can go through more questions. So let's open it up. Any questions?
That's a great question. Our scorecard is, I'm going to be very specific on one particular one. So we just did a huge project over the last year, switching field service software. So very feature-based, tech feature-based. So, we prioritized features that were revenue-driving features first, and we gave them, those are worth 5 points each. And then what is the next set? So every feature we needed, it's an order of priority with a score, a value to it, right? Our demos, our vendors we were interviewing knew we were doing a scorecard, and they knew what was on there because we were literally asking, do you have this? Do you do this? How does this work? No one asked us to share and I don't know that we would have. I don't know. It'd be interesting because we literally had
so
all
no
of
one
them.
asked.
Yeah,
There's
no
the first mistake.
I mean, I can't say that I would or wouldn't have, but it would definitely be, for the ones that didn't win, it was, you did not have the features that we were looking for. I mean, it was a clear winner for us on who we chose. I mean, literally, if I recall, it was like, their score was like a 93%, and the next highest score was like 67. So, I mean, they were way ahead of every other vendor we demoed. So it was just a clear winner. Now, it doesn't mean they had everything, and we still have our issues, but it wasn't even about price. It was about value. So. Yeah, actually, for this particular vendor, part of the negotiating and choosing them was how much impact are we going to have on your product roadmap? Because there are some important gaps here that we want to make sure you're going to prioritize and build out for us. So that was part of our negotiating, and maybe one of the things that won us over from a previous question was their willingness to be a part of their quarterly roadmap planning sessions.
Great question. Anybody else? Anything percolating?
Yeah, and so I think it goes back to, we have a scheduled webinar. It's every other Wednesday. I'll be like, hey, it seems like I'm not being as clear as I can be about what I recommend for you to do. So why don't you hop on next, Wednesday? I'll kind of walk through why your brand dev videos need to be this, this, this. And I feel like a lot of brands overthink filming, so they end up doing nothing. And the best thing you can do is film testimonials of people that love you. And it sounds so simple, but so many franchise brands, I'll go on their website and there's just nothing there. Or there's an interview at the yearly event with no B-roll of the franchisee's life at home with their kids or at the office. It's just So I think Zach, and you disappeared. There you are. Yeah, I think it's just not being afraid to speak up and be like, hey, we did this for 5 other brands in your niche that sell exactly what you sell. This is what I'd recommend also.
I'll just quickly say I think we could be doing more. Even hearing that question, I go, oh yeah, there's probably a lot more to do. But in our industry, the people who are less educated or knowledgeable, you can pick it up in the language and in the conversation. I tend to slow down those the process of selling then, because you really want to make sure this is a good fit. And they're often the same people who really want to go, right? They're like, oh, I've got a deadline of next week. And so I often slow down, and I don't want it to go too quick. So that's just kind of a tip on my end. And use that time to educate and make sure you're aligned. Any more questions? We got, all right.